Welcome everyone. I'm really excited to be here with these comics creators, Dua Her, Nina Drew, and Robert Lee Trillo. Be sure to check out and support their work at TCAF in the online exhibitors list. And thank you to the Toronto Comic Arts Festival for inviting us to participate as an affiliate event. My name is Rotem and I go by Ro, and I use they, them pronouns. I am the librarian and founder of the Canada Comics Open Library. I am a white person with short blonde pink hair and brown eyes, sitting in front of a couple of tall white bookcases that are filled with colorful comics and books. And my Muppety dog Willow is hiding somewhere nearby. We've got a little closet in the wall, storage closet, and that's kind of his little cave. Thank you for joining us. The event will run about an hour, give or take a few minutes, and there'll be time for Q&A at the end. You can ask them anytime in the Q&A box. And Jordan, who is with us here as well and is a board member at CCAL, will be helping moderate the Q&A. Hi, Jordan. And we'll also be posting this event to YouTube with edited captions as well. For those who haven't heard about the Canada Comics Open Library, or CCAL, we're a volunteer-run library and nonprofit based in Toronto focused on comics and their accessibility. We host free community events like workshops, readings, and presentations. And we really like connecting people to comics, much like TCAF. You can visit our website at canadacomicsol.org to view our projects, blog, and other online resources like the Canadian Cartoonist Database. And you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Canada Comics OL, and on YouTube searching Canada Comics Open Library. Canada Comics Open Library would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat, and that Indigenous peoples have lived on and cared for this land for more than 15,000 years. This territory is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Treaty. Today, Toronto is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we want to acknowledge that as we are settlers on this land, and settlers on all Indigenous colonized land directly benefit from the process of colonization. Settlers and Canadian organizations have a lot of work to do, including our library. We're focusing on prioritizing Indigenous comics for our collection, showcasing Indigenous creators on our website and physical library space, trying to make our catalog system more inclusive of Indigenous communities through tagging and language, and making our space more accessible. Please do get in touch with us if you'd like to work with us to achieve these goals, or if you have suggestions for how we can work towards this. I would also like to acknowledge that today I'm not based in Toronto. I'm speaking from Victoria, BC, which is the traditional territory of the Lekwungen peoples, the Songhees, and the Esquimalt nations, and that I'm a settler on these lands. So now I'm going to introduce the creators that are here with us today, and then I'm going to hand the event over to them. First, Robert Louis Trillo is a lifelong Bay Area resident born in Oakland, California. He's the child of student activists who watched lots of science fiction and took him to many demonstrations. Always drawing, Rob grew up to be an artist, falling in love with graffiti, fine art, illustration, murals, and children's books. In that order, sort of. Through storytelling, he's able to scratch the surface of so many untold stories. Rob is the author and illustrator of Furkan's First Flat Top. He's a dad of a teenage boy and a brand new baby girl. He loves ice cream and his wife, who laughs big and corrects his grammar every chance she gets. Down with the system and soggy French fries. Rob is co-founder of the Trust Your Struggle Collective, a contributor to the Social Justice Children's BK Holiday Fair, the Bullhorn blog, Rad Dad, Euphoric Sounds, and the founder of Combien Books. Rob will be reading from his mini comic time. Nina Drew is an artist who lives in Montreal with their partner Larry and hairless cat Vashti. Nina has been drawing and painting for basically their entire life and is currently mailing out monthly art letters of mini zines to their snail mail patrons. Their work focuses on themes of queer identity through a mix of autobiography, fantasy, watercolors, and digital painting. Nina will be reading from their Perzine comic, Frog and Toad Are Queer. Dua is a Hmong American cartoonist and illustrator from Wisconsin. She graduated with a degree in comics and sequential art in 2015 and has illustrated picture books and self-published several comics. Her most recent work includes Tradition, a mini comic published by Uncivilized Books. Most of her work is an exploration of culture and identity. Dua will be reading from her latest mini comic, Tradition. So thank you so much for bearing with me through that introduction. And now I'm going to hand it over to the panelists. I guess we will start off in the order that I read people's bios in. So Rob, I guess I'll hand it over to you.
Hey, what's up? Thank you again for that introduction, and it's great to be here with everyone. So my name is Robert Lou Trujillo, and I'm from Oakland, California, and I am a mixed person with dreadlocks. I wear glasses, I have a beard. My mom's African-American, my dad's Mexican, Korean, and Apache Indian. I'm here on Ohlone land in the Bay Area, and I'm in my living room. So behind me, there's some papers on the wall, a dresser, a door, things of that nature. And what I'm about to share with you is a little mini comic I made and a picture book that I did a while ago. So the mini comic is kind of just me thinking about what it was like when you have a crush on someone in junior high school, and the kind of the butterflies you feel when you want to get ready for school, and just hoping that you get to see that person, hoping that they're actually there that day when you got your outfit all ready to go. So I will share my screen and then you'll be able to see. All right, so the first page of it is, the name of it is called Time. And I use watercolor to illustrate this with a black ink pen. So you see the letters T-I-M-E and then my name. And I drew each panel in the shape of a old Polaroid picture. So that's the title. In the beginning, it's me in bed, waking up. It's 7:15 a.m. and me, or the character who's on the bed, is just laid out, asleep. Blankets are there, pillows are there. There's a poster in the background. There's a window. And on the second panel, there's me getting dressed for school. I have a backpack on, an orange sweatshirt, and you can see my bed, my window, a basketball, a office chair, and then a very tall mirror where I'm smiling at myself, thinking, how fly do I look getting ready for school? Making sure that I look good to, impress the person who I have a crush on. And it is 7:30 a.m. The next panel is me picking out tape cassettes, because I'm old and I actually used to take Walkmans with me to school. I would pick several cassettes of music that I wanted to listen to. And in the panel, you see a display of different cassettes, and then one hand holding a Walkman, a music player, and the other hand holding two cassettes. And that's 7:45 a.m. The next panel is me missing the bus. If any of you have ever had to take public transportation, sometimes you're not there on time, it will pass you right by. So I'm running for the bus, even, got my earphones on listening to music, but I missed it. And it is 8:01 a.m. And in the panel, you see sunshine, blue sky, houses in the background, a green bus leaving me behind, and me trying to catch it. In the next panel, I've gotten to school, and the school that I went to, there was a huge gate around it everywhere. So if you didn't get in by the time that they closed the gate, you were just out of luck. So it's 8:35 a.m. and I am climbing the gate to get in, still with my headphones on playing music. On the next panel, I am trying my best to sneak into class, past the teacher, past the other students, and to sit in my seat right next to my crush. And I'm still listening to music, kind of dancing as I sneak in, and it is 8:35 a.m. And at last, I get to sit behind my crush. She is also dressed very fly. She's got earrings. She has a green, I don't know, maybe a sports bra you would call it. She has brown hair, brown skin, and her hair is pulled back. and I'm just happy to be there, just checking to see if that's her. And it's 8:40 a.m. And then the last panel is me just in bliss and happiness that I got to get to school and sit next to my crush, because sometimes that's all you need is to see your crush. And in this panel, it's me smiling. I have glasses on. I have locks. There's hearts. There's colorful red and orange and blue and green, and hearts again, and musical notes just to kind of symbolize a feeling of happiness. And that's the end. The last page is a clock, and then my website and the year. And so that is the end of the comic. That was really fun to make, just because when I've done comics in the past, I labor over how nice they look or how polished they look. And for that, I wanted to do something in between stuff for other people that was just really fast. And while I'm looking for this other picture book, I'm open to questions if anyone has them. And I will just share again so you can see just a little bit of a picture book. And feel free to stop me if I'm going over time. So I won't be able to share the whole book, but just the beginning of it. So this is a picture book. I work a lot in children's books, and this is a book that I wrote and illustrated. It's called Furqan's First Flat Top, or El Primer Corte de Mesita de Furqan. And that is a bilingual picture book about a little boy who wants to get his first haircut. And it's a father and son story. So here is Furqan. He's getting ready in the morning in his room, talking about his hair. And he goes to talk to his dad about going to get the haircut. You can see it's in the morning. And whenever I read to children in libraries, I love reading to kids. They always point out tons of little details about the pictures, like the color of his socks or, other things in the room. They take the bus, they get on the bus and head to Mr. Wallace's barbershop, which is the closest one to them. And here I invite them to kind of point out who they see there, what they're doing. And in this picture, which I'm sorry, I wasn't describing the other ones, but Furqan is a little brown boy. He's mixed. He's in a barbershop that's filled with people. Some of them are sitting in chairs. Some of them are standing up and talking. Some of them are actually getting their hair cut. Some people are talking to each other. And when he walks in, his father, who is also brown, standing, has like a blue jean jacket and pants on and a hat. Furqan, the little boy, stands kind of behind his father because he's a little scared, a little timid, a little bit shy, because this is a new place. People are probably very loud, and he's not sure what to think about it. And then on the next panel, you just get to see some of the tools the barber uses: scissors, a comb, clippers, lots of different type of clippers for cutting hair, a picture of a little boy, and then some other hair products. And when Furqan is thinking about which haircut he wants to get, he's presented with a poster that has a bunch of different types of haircuts on them. And since he's looking for what's known as a flat top, he gets a bunch of different styles of flat top. So there's someone who's just straight across, someone whose flat top is very tall, some who's like curved like a Gumby, some who look more like steps, and so on and so on. He's just looking at them, trying to decide which haircut do I want to get. And I'll stop after this page, but the meat of the book is the little boy starting to imagine things in his life that are flat. And so one of the first things he imagines is a drum teacher that he has, who's playing 2 conga drums, and the tops of them are flat. And he just starts to imagine things that are flat. So I will stop sharing there. And so that is a picture book that came out in 2016. And I work a lot in kids' books, and I'm making a transition to comics. So yeah. Oh, you're on mute.
There we go. I just said thanks. That's so great. Was that because you helped run or founded Come Bien Books?
Yeah, it's a Spanish term, come bien. It just means to eat well or to eat your food. And I started it in 2007, actually, the same time I started doing zines. And it was just to make my own self-publishing company and to work with other illustrators and writers of color at the time.
That's great. And are these books available? I get some are available through TCAF. Do you have them available online elsewhere?
Yeah, so the comic that I read from, the mini comic Time, is I just debuted it at TCAF. It's not available anywhere else, so it's in the vendor portal, so to speak. And then for Khan's First Flat Top is available, yeah, a bunch of different places, bookstores, website, and stuff like that.
Great. And I love the Polaroid format of the first comic you read as well. That was awesome. I guess we'll save questions for the end for everyone collectively. So thanks again, Rob. And we'll come back to your work and we'll move on to, so who did I introduce second? Nina, I believe. So Nina, take it away. Thanks.
Hi. That was really great. Thank you so much for reading that. Okay, where should I start? I guess I should begin by describing myself. So I am a white person with long brown hair that's in a high pony held up by a floof. I'm currently wearing blue light glasses over my blue eyes, and also a black t-shirt with a little pink Cupid with a battle axe by Creepy Gals. And I right now I have long nails. They almost, I guess they're like red and pink, but they were for a photo shoot that I was a part of recently. So they're like accidental pointers for the zine I'm about to read to you guys. So the zine I'm about to read is Frog and Toad Are Queer. I'm going to be reading the physical format. Please let me know if you can't see it as well, but I'll do my best to hold it up and read it at the same time. So right now this cover is like a white iridescent. Might be a little hard to see right now. I'm on a white backdrop, but in a semi-empty room that's sort of being renovated into our bedroom. So yeah. But anyway, it's a pearlescent cover. On it are like these superimposed frogs. One is green, one is orange. I just like the wraparound idea. The cover is written Frog and Toad Are Queer. I always forget to write my name on my zines, but I'm gonna add a little sticker later, so don't worry about that. So this is Frog and Toad Are Queer, the first page. The whole book is done in orange and green watercolors. This was the last zine I made before I switched to digital media and draw mostly on an iPad now. So this one's very special for that. I'm just gonna read it first and then I'm gonna describe it if that's okay. So the first page says, Arnold Lobel, who wrote and illustrated the books, came out to his family shortly before publishing the first book of the Frog and Toad series. According to his daughter, Adrienne Lobel, the series really was the beginning of him coming out. So that is written over Frog and Toad sitting on a porch. It's one of the original illustrations from the Frog and Toad book series. And Frog has his arm over Toad's shoulder and they're just sort of like enjoying their yard. And here is an illustration of Frog and Toad Frog is hiding in a closet and Toad is hiding in the bed. And under it, it says, they stayed there for a long time, just feeling very brave together. And that's from a story where they go for a walk and they get really scared and they run home and hide in their house. And I just felt it was really pertinent to the feeling of like not feeling safe enough to be yourself, but just sort of like going through life anyways and building relationships through fear kind of thing. And the weird resilience that comes with that. And I just thought it was like a very effective visual metaphor for what that must have been like for the author of this children's book series. So the next page, is this out of order? No, it's not. Okay, never mind. Okay, so this is the next page in the series. And So it says, their fashions and identities change like the seasons, just over and over and over again. Over Toad, who's dressed very elaborately in these stripy green pantaloons, large orange hat, and green feather. And he's got a sort of a walking stick. This is from a dream sequence, and this is like the fanciest outfit he's ever in the series. And next to it is the similar drawing that was on the cover, but this time it's a little bit separated so you can see the green and the orange. So green is Frog, orange is Toad. This one is, I identify with Toad's anxiety over his little non-binary Victorian swimming suit and rejoice at his eventual dismissal of other people's comments. So that goes with this drawing. It's like a green pencil drawing of a bunch of various forest animals pointing and laughing at Toad, who's in a stripy green Victorian swimming suit. And it just really reminded me of the type of swimsuit that I wear sometimes and how my friends just constantly, so I live in Montreal. It's an island surrounded by water, but there's no actual clean water to swim in aside from in pools. So summers can be pretty sweltering and pretty miserable, especially for non-binary people who like don't want to go swim in a public pool. So you just kind of have to sweat it out. This one says, these two friends look at each other more tenderly than any romantic duo I've ever known. I admire the expanses of their intimacy. So the one with the look is just a compilation of them staring super tenderly at each other. Here, Frog is holding a teapot and Toad is just like staring at him like he's never drunk tea or any liquid in his entire life. This is just a close-up of this drawing of them going to fly a kite together. And the look, I feel like the look says everything. And then this is them playing leapfrog together. And I don't know, this is a pretty short scene. I feel like I could have elaborated on a lot of these thoughts, but the characters in the original books sort of like, you have to really read the original books for this one, I think, if you're a fan of children's books from the 70s. Because through these 4 books, there's just like a building of a narrative of these two friends who are there for each other no matter what, but also live in separate houses and just have like really clear boundaries, but they're always over at each other's house. And I guess this was kind of a response to these articles that were written about the author coming out as gay and sort of like making connections. And I think I mostly just wrote this zine because I love the series and because I love their relationship, but as a queer person, I just want to like, I want to have representation that's just like a little bit more in your face. So that's where the centerfold comes in. Here we have Frog and Toad sort of like bare-chested. This is a Tom of Finland remix, but make it amphibian. And the next one is another one from a Japanese gay artist who I'm completely blanking on now. I'm so sorry. I'll go look it up for the Q&A if you want to bring it up again. But here they're bare-chested, face-to-face again, sort of like revisiting that look. And under it, it says in orange in very tiny text, whether in tight pants or chest ablaze, or demurely sipping tea. So tea is a very common theme in this series. Here we have another one of the original illustrations. That's Frog in bed with Toad bringing him tea this time. And next to it is another one of my interpretations of it. Frog and Toad are sort of like Victorian cottagecore lesbians about to dive into, you know, this little tea time table setting. So this one says just Frog and Toad in huge letters, and I use the same bare-chested frogs to write out their names, like that. See the O? And then the next page is just some tea, like a tea landscape. Here we have, I haven't decided which one this is. This could be either they're just guzzling the tea. Here's a sexy toad reading a book on a teapot, sipping tea. It's a little meta. And then the teapots are just sort of making clouds into the sky. It's a whole world. And then finally, it just says art queer. It's on a black background. Here we have Toad, all buff and muscular, squatting, and superimposed is a line drawing of frogs squatting as well. And next to it is just sort of a sexy version of an original drawing. So here they're in the canoe, that part's original, but the fishing rod is like a sex toy, and there's kind of mushrooms and sex toys mixed in with teapots and flowers. And here there's a gradient of green to orange. And I really like this drawing a lot. And then at the end, it just says, don't you just love being gay and talking shit? And it has an original drawing of Frog and Toads drinking tea again. This one's another watercolor version of an original drawing. And then that's the end. Thanks so much.
Woo!
Thanks so much, Nina. That was great. Am I unmuted? Yes. I haven't hosted an online event in a while, so I'm a little rusty, but that was awesome. As a queer person who really loves tea and collects picture books, like especially 70s picture books, I really enjoyed that. Okay, so now I guess we will move on to Dua. Thanks.
Okay, that was great, everybody. I enjoyed it. So thank you again for having me tonight. So I am an Asian woman. My hair is in a ponytail, wearing a gray shirt. Behind me is a brown curtain and some, I don't know, like wallpaper. It looks like plants, but so today I'll be reading Tradition. Tradition is a little mini comic reflecting on like the realities of kind of keeping up with traditions in the world we live in today. And it kind of touches base on some like shamanist customs in the Hmong culture and everything. So I'll just be sharing my screen for you guys. Oh, but before I do that, this is the actual mini comic. It's like this big. So yeah, I'll just be reading a little bit from it. So let me share my screen here. Okay, so I hope you guys see all that okay. So again, the title is Tradition. I drew this using brush and ink, and then I colored it digitally on Photoshop. The colors for this comic is black and white, and with a hint of red as the accent color. On the cover, there's a girl, which is probably, you could say it's me, a younger version of myself, in a ponytail, and you can see the back of my head, and I am facing it's a kind of like a spiritual altar. In the Hmong culture, we call it a suka, and it's basically made out of joss paper, and there are some chicken feathers adorned on the joss paper, and the joss paper is pretty much held up by like a piece of like a stick, and then running down the sides of it is more joss paper that's been like kind of like cut out more and everything. And to the bottom left is a lit candle, and to the bottom right is some burning incense. Oops. So before I get onto like the story, I feel like since like I don't know if anybody knows a lot about the Hmong people, but like I have a little glossary of terms that I'll use like kind of throughout the story, and to help like readers outside of the culture understand like the concepts and stuff that's going on in the story. But Hmong people are basically like an ethnic group from southern China, and I think during the Vietnam War, like that's pretty much how they pretty much disperse throughout like the rest of the world. Like there's Hmong people living in North America, in Europe, in Australia, and all over in the world and everything. So that's kind of like who Hmong people are. And in the Hmong culture, one of the original, I guess you can say, religions is shamanism. And basically shamanism is just like it's like the belief in spirits and things have spirits and everything. And so joss paper is like what you saw at the beginning there. It's kind of like a specialty kind of paper. Sometimes it would be like adorned in like kind of like gold or silver, and it serves kind of as like spirit money. They usually use it during like funerals or like special events and everything. A shaman is a spiritual healer who is able to connect to the spirit world. In this story, I'll explain that my grandfather is like a shaman and everything. Soul calling, this is basically like the act of calling one's soul back to their bodies. It is believed that like in the Hmong culture, like a person houses like many different souls. So like sometimes if you get scared or something, like your soul may wander off, and so they have to kind of call your soul back so that you like don't get ill or anything. And since this story takes place around like the Hmong New Year time, which is kind of like late November to December, usually like during the New Year, it's like a shaman or the head of household, they'll like kind of like perform a ceremony where they call like each member of the household their like souls back and everything, so that they start the year fresh, like in good health and everything. And spiritual altar, which is the thing you saw on the cover, which is also called a sukkah. It is like an altar that's kind of like responsible for maintaining the family's like wealth and like kind of like looking over everyone. And like during the New Year's, the head of household or the shaman, they will kind of like renew this contract with like the spiritual altar, and like in hopes that like they can offer like blessings and stuff to the family. So they'll really like sacrifice a chicken or like burn joss paper to like perform this ritual and everything. So that's just a little glimpse at some of the stuff that I might go over and stuff in the story. So the first page here, the text reads, "Tradition continues to change no matter how well we maintain it." On the foreground, there's a younger version of myself in ponytails, in a gray shirt, looking at the shaman altar, which is the bigger one right there. Usually a shaman altar, it is like the altar that a shaman uses to perform his like rituals or ceremony and stuff. It's really made out of like wood, and it's like adorned with joss paper, and sometimes housed inside the altar there's like some like incense or candles or like little trinkets here and there that the shaman, or tools that the shaman uses to do his rituals and everything. To the left of that is what you saw on the cover is like the spiritual altar or the sukkah. So the text reads, "I come from a family of shamans. Both my grandparents from my dad's side were shamans." So here's like a little family tree diagram thing. On the top to the left is my grandpa, and then to the right is my grandma. They have little sparks, I guess you can say, coming out of them, indicating that they were both shamans. And then going down is my dad on the left, and then my mom on the right, and me at the bottom. So one thing about shamans is that it's like you can't really like learn to become a shaman. It's kind of like something that's like chosen, like you have to be chosen to be one. So sometimes like one generation there might be like a shaman, maybe like a few generations down like there might be another shaman. So it really just varies, and you don't really know when it happens and everything. But both my grandparents were shamans. So the next page, the text reads, "Every year around November, my grandpa would perform his yearly New Year rituals." So here is my grandpa. He's hunched over, sitting on a short wooden stool. On his right hand, he's holding like a wooden hammer, and he's on his left hand, he's holding like a little tool that he uses to make like indents into the joss paper and everything. If you can recall from the beginning, like the cover where there's some that has like little indents on them, and that's pretty much how he makes the marks and everything. So he pretty much like does this to like kind of like replace the old one that was on the spiritual altar, you know, the one in the cover. So this next page, the text reads, some of the rituals include renewing the spiritual altar, soul calling, and calling down ancestors to enjoy yearly feasts. So this page is divided into 3 horizontal panels. On the top panel is a close-up of the spiritual altar. The middle panel shows my grandpa standing by an open door. And in his hand is a ring that he uses, one of his tools to like call back your soul and everything. And to the right of him is a bowl of boiled eggs, and pretty much just sitting on top of some like rice, and there are 2 incense sticking out from it. Usually like these eggs, usually there'd be like a boiled egg for each member of the family. So however many people in their family, there's like an egg for each person. So pretty much he's calling everybody's soul back to come back and everything. The bottom panel, it shows my grandpa sitting around a round table. In front of him is a plate, and there's a bowl of cooked rice surrounded by some spoons. And there's also boiled chicken, a bowl of boiled chicken, and like a cup of water next to him. And usually this is the process where he kind of like calls the ancestors to come back and you know, feast and everything. Usually like, you know, this happens around November, December. So really it's the time like you know, once harvest is done, and like, you know, we got like food that we can share with the ancestors and everything. So on the next page, the text reads, we butcher chickens to eat and use some as offerings. So this page is divided to 2 panels. The top panel shows me holding a chicken by the wings, I guess, at the bottom of the wings, struggling to hold it because I was quite young back then. So I didn't quite enjoy this process. And then my mom just butchering the chicken. The bottom, it shows 2 boiled chickens on top of a red platter, and there's like 2 incense sticking out from one of the chicken wings or arms. There's also a boiled egg and like some cooked rice that's on this platter. And these are the chickens that we don't really eat. We actually use these as like offerings and whatnot. Next page, text reads, as I grew older, more relatives converted to Christianity. So here shows me in the center, and like going to the left and right of me are some of my aunts and uncles. Most of the younger generation didn't believe or want to continue learning the old ways. Some converted for convenience. So here it just shows, like as I grew older, most of my relatives that were once shaman, they converted to Christianity. Like not saying one is bad or the other, but like a lot of them converted because like a lot of the older generation were dying off, so there were just not enough, I guess, knowledge that was passing down, and or people that's willing to kind of learn like all the stuff that like my grandparents and all the older generation knows and everything. So a lot of them went to church instead. So here it shows like a red road leading to a church and some people walking towards it. And the text reads, the only families who didn't convert were mine and a few of my uncles, mainly because my grandpa was a shaman. So here it just shows my grandpa in the center, and to the left and right of him are a few of my uncles. It wasn't until his death a few years later that it really hit us. So here it shows my mom to the left, me in the center, and my father to the right, looking at my grandpa's gravestone. A lot of what he knew died with him. We were lost without his guidance. So again, here's just like a side view of my mom, my dad, and me just looking down, feeling like lost after the loss of my grandpa. Without grandpa, there was no more soul calling, no more elaborate New Year rituals, but mom still made us butcher chickens. So this panel is divided into 3 horizontal panels. The first one on top shows the ring that my grandpa uses to do his ceremonies, and there's like a ox horn that's split in half. That's also like another tool that he uses for his ceremonial events and everything. The middle panel shows an up close of the shaman altar. And then the bottom panel shows me and my sister holding the chicken while my mom butchers it. And in the background, there's some boiling water. There's a box of chickens waiting to get butchered. And then there's also some like buckets and like garbage cans and everything. So, even though my grandfather passed away, like, there's still stuff that like we kind of still had to do despite him not being there. So that's all I'm going to be reading for today. There's like a few more pages, but I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Kua. That was beautiful. So I have a few questions, but I'll let Jordan take over for a little bit if he has any questions, and if you have any questions for each other as well. So first I'll hand it over to Jordan, and then I'll ask my questions.
Okay, thanks, Ro. Thanks a bunch. Those stories were all really excellent, everyone. Wow, they're all so different from one another too. Lots of different stories tonight. Might as well just describe myself first. I'm fairly pale person. I have rosy cheeks, a beard, my hair's in a ponytail and a red scrunchie. I'm wearing a pink shirt that's tie-dyed with blue, I think, coming out of it. And behind me is a colorful painting, a stack of fabrics to my right, on top of a little cabinet, a space heater to my left, and a window that's open right now, so a bunch of light is pouring into the left as well. So I guess I'll just ask you guys each a question in order, and I've got a few written down here. So I'll start with Robert, since you're the first one to go. So when you were working on your most recent comic that you did, Time, it was like, I love the style, how quickly it was done. And then when you showed us the storybook that you did after it, it seemed a lot more finished looking, in quotation marks, and like the perspective was a lot more classic, I guess you can say. So I'm just wondering if your Time comic, did you pencil it at all first, or did you go straight to inking and then coloring, or how you ended up creating these drawings?
Yeah, so I started working on a graphic novel first when I got into comics, and that was challenging because there's just so much of an art form to making comics. So I with this one Time, I wanted to, rather than labor over all the perspective and the details like I normally would, to try and do something as fast as possible. So I doodled it out with pencil really quick, and then inked it with lines, and then painted it. And my goal was just to finish it. Pretty much, that was my goal.
How long do you think it took you?
Probably just a day or two.
Nice, that's so great. The drawings turned out so well. The last one with all of the hearts around your head, and the child self's head, it's just makes my heart feel all warm. So yeah, I'll move on to Nina. Since this is being recorded, I might as well just open up the Q&A, because I noticed that getting back to the drawing of Toad and Frog with their bare chests out, touching each other's chests, and you referenced, but you couldn't remember the name. Jocelyn in the chat says Gengora Tagame, in which you answered, yes, thank you. So just wanted to say that for the recording, because I don't think the recording captures the Q&A. So I guess one of the first things I'm wondering is if you grew up with the Frog and Toad series, or did you find them later on in life and then connected with them as a teenager, or when you were a child, or when those came about?
Yeah, totally. Thanks for bringing that up again. I was like so embarrassed that I forgot that artist's name. So thank you, Jocelyn. Yeah, so when I was little, I listened to a lot of audiobooks, and one of the ones that I listened to fairly young was the Frog and Toad series. And I also still have a copy of each of the children's books. It came in a box set. And yeah, the original books have a lot of the same drawings that I have in my zine, but they're more of a muted color palette of brown and like muddy green, more of an olive green. Like really earthy colors. and they sort of match more the mood of the books. Like from a really young age, I was just struck by how the stories are like really quiet and kind of depressing but soothing at the same time. and they're just really weird and different from lots of other kids' books. So they were really memorable in that way. And then later on, like in, I forget when, but like in recent years, some articles came out that were just sort of talking about the author Arnold Lobel's personal history, and how it was revealed more recently that he was a closeted gay man who came out to his family, his wife and kids, like later on in life, and that it sort of coincided with the Frog and Toad books, and people were starting to sort of connect the dots with these sort of sad stories, but very, very like cute and soothing and comforting, and I could kind of see it too, sort of the lines of connecting between the stories that he wrote and then his personal life.
Nice. Yeah, you chose some great images to represent that. I've got a few more questions for both Nina and Robert too, but we'll ask one to you, Dua, because might as well keep it moving while we have time here. So I had not heard about Joss paper before. I was going to ask what it was, but thanks to you, you made that glossary at the beginning, so that was answered fairly quickly. But do you still have any Joss paper, like personally, or any of the shamanistic equipment that your grandfather used in these rituals or traditions, I should say?
Yeah. Like, I guess like when I was before I got married, my family was shamanism. So like right now I'm like with my husband's family. So then like they're not really like traditional in that sense. So like they don't like, I guess, use those kind of tools and stuff anymore. And like a lot of like my grandfather, his like shaman altar and everything, like pretty much like once he died, like we all pretty much burned that with him too, so he, just so that he can take it with him to his next life and everything. So yeah, a lot of like what was his, then he just took it with him. So yeah, it's kind of sad in a sense, but I think I'm just glad that I kind of grew up remembering that was there and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's also a tradition of itself to like bury or burn the belongings of somebody with them. So kind of goes back to tradition. It's
right.
And like you were saying, tradition is constantly changing and progressing, and it's never the same thing endlessly.
Right. Yeah.
All right, well, just going back to Robert, let's see here. Oh yeah, what music were you listening to on those old cassettes? Do you remember what was being played in your youth?
Yeah, sure. So in one of the pictures, I have, my hand is holding a purple and a blue cassette, and the blue cassette was for a group here from Oakland called the Souls of Mischief, and the purple one was for someone from the Wu-Tang Clan called Raekwon, and those were early '90s.
Cool. Did you ever make mixtapes with like 2 tape players and do record and pause and all of that stuff? And
oh yeah, all the time.
yeah, that's great. I remember that stuff fondly too. It was sweet seeing those images, and it's like, oh, that's great. Let's see. So Nina, the images that you pulled from the Frog and Toad originals, were you drawing those from memory, or did you trace them, or did you just do like a reference of the book to the left and then drawing them to the right, or how did you compose those images?
Well, the ones that are directly pulled from the books, this is like this was my system before I had an iPad, because I traced by scanning, like flipping through the books and bookmarking all the pages I wanted to take images from, and then I scanned them onto my computer, and then I sort of like scaled the image to the size I wanted on my screen, and then traced it with a pencil with printer paper on my screen, trying not to press too hard to mess up. I lost some pixels before, so I was trying to not repeat that. And then I would like sort of go back and finish it with the pencils and watercolors. But now I have an iPad, so I've skipped a lot of those steps.
Yeah, so you're using your computer as a light box.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds scary.
Yeah, I did it for way too long.
Nice. Well, they look great. It was
you.
pretty clear on the screen too. I know you were a little hesitant to, or like were questioning that maybe, but they were clear enough on the screen to see them.
Perfect.
So Dua, I guess just another question about process work. You were saying that you inked everything and then brought it onto the computer. Was any of the color inked beforehand as well, or was all of the color done on the computer, or what was your process in creating your story?
Yeah, all the color is done digitally. I think it's just quicker that way, you know, like, because for me, I pencil pretty okay, like it's not fast, you know. I think that I take the longest to pencil, and then once I ink it, it's like, okay, it's like my favorite part of the process. You know, just making everything look nice again. And then like, yeah, and then, you know, digitally coloring it. So yeah, everything's done on digitally when it comes to color and everything. So yeah.
Cool. And do you script your work out beforehand? Do you thumbnail it at all, or do you
Yeah.
just?
Yeah, I go through like several
right in
rounds of thumbnails just to get the story right and everything before I transfer it onto like nice paper and pencil it and everything. So yeah.
Cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. I like to ask this question when we're talking. I'll ask this to all of you guys. But first, I wanted to ask Robert what your favorite flavor of ice cream was, because I'm super into ice cream as well, and you mentioned that was in your bio. So I'm just curious about that.
Chocolate and peanut butter together. That's my favorite.
Yeah, that's pretty choice. So yeah, question I always like asking cartoonists on these is, why do you guys choose comics as your medium? I guess, Robert, you're moving in towards it, but why comics in general? What draws you to the form?
Well, I love reading them. I didn't get into them until actually I became a parent, and I was reading them with my son, who's now a teenager. And I just didn't realize there was such a wide world of them. And as I got into them, I was like, wow, this will be really fun to make these. And so that's generally what got me into it and wanting to read more and make more.
Very cool. What comics were you reading with your kids?
We read a lot of the Flight anthologies and
Oh
Kazu
yeah.
books, and now like Nidhi Chanani's Pashmina books, things like that.
Oh, those Flight books are so good. I like haven't thought about those for a while. I read those so much as a teenager. They're so cool, so inspiring. How about you, Nina? Why do you choose comics as an art form?
Oh, I've just always wanted to be an artist, and love drawing and inventing stories and stuff. And yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question. It's more like I tried lots of other stuff that didn't work out, and this is fun, and I've always wanted to do it, and it's going well.
Nice. And yourself, Dua?
Yeah, when I was younger, I thought I want to be an animator. So then I took some animation class. I'm like, no, it's gonna take forever. So then I think comics is like a good medium to kind of like, it's kind of like the in between, you know. It's like you can still do everything yourself and tell like an effective like story and everything. So yeah, I think that's why I kind of went with comics. It's just manageable, more manageable. It could be a one-person job. You know, you get to control everything, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So
Yeah, animation is ridiculous and involves a huge team of people. So I feel that big time. Ro, you were gonna say you had a few questions, or pass it on to you.
Sure. You asked some of the questions that I was curious about. I got a couple more. I guess I know a lot of artists and people are feeling pretty overwhelmed these days and in a creative slump. So I'm just wondering, and maybe selfishly, and maybe people watching and listening could benefit from this question. Are there activities or resources or community you turn to when you're in a creative slump, or yeah, what has been inspiring you or keeping you going through the pandemic? Yeah, for anyone who wants to answer that or has an answer.
I have so many thoughts about this. I don't know about either of you, so I'll try to keep it short in case you want to add something on. Okay, I guess my number one tip would be to just trace things that you like, or to like find the way that you like being creative, and just do that, even if it's with tracing or like just taking whatever shortcuts that you might not think are adequate, or like just don't worry about it looking nice or anything. Whatever it is that you need to do to like get that process going, just do it in the most enjoyable way possible. And then the flip side of that is that you need to take long breaks from making art sometimes, and just let yourself absorb knowledge and like squeeze it out, and take time to absorb ideas and knowledge again.
Yeah, I agree with what you said about like absorbing knowledge and like taking a little time to yourself. I don't know about anybody else, but like last year during the pandemic, I felt like I wasn't really productive at all. And a lot of the time I was just like browsing Instagram, looking at like other artists, what kind of stuff they're creating, and just kind of like gathering like inspiration for me to come up with my next project and everything. So yeah, I was just looking for inspiration. I'm also part of this like online group on Facebook, so that was kind of helpful because I get to see like other artists that share their work, and like we get to talk to each other and stuff. So that kind of helped me, with my stuff and just like my mentalness, I guess, during the pandemic and trying to stay sane and everything. So yeah, definitely having a community was really helpful.
I think exercise has been good. I've been trying to exercise more, so like getting outside and exercising, and then yeah, going off the grid where you're not connected to any internet in any shape or form. And then something I was doing before the pandemic started that I still do is make an inspiration board, maybe once or twice a year, and I'll just try to gather like books or podcasts or art or music and like put it in one board and then share it. And I like that.
That's awesome. I think really, really good advice, which I'm going to take into account for myself as well. I guess for those listening, people can find your work at the TCAF Exhibitors Showcase. Are there any other projects, comics projects or other projects that you're a part of right now, or working on, that you'd like to direct people to? And where can people find you online, and how can they connect with you, for anyone?
Yeah, I will share one. I just finished a picture book that's called Alejandria Fights Back, or La Lucha de Alejandria. And it's a picture book about a Afro-Latina girl who is facing eviction, and she decides to organize her neighbors to fight back against that eviction. And that's coming out this summer on Feminist Press.
I guess I'll go next. Yeah, I currently don't have any big upcoming titles, but I do contribute pretty frequently to my patrons who subscribe to Snail Mail. And if that's not your thing and you're not interested in paying for things, you can just follow me on Instagram, and I post there like every week. And so I guess the Patreon is linked in my bio on my Instagram, and my Instagram is Nina_Drew with 3 W's, like the World Wide Web.
Thanks, Nina. And we'll also, when we edit the video and post it on YouTube, I'll link to people's projects there as well. And okay, something that also I might be selfishly asking for the library, because we have a lot of people, we're often in a shared space at the library in a community lounge area, and there's a lot of people who are new to comics and maybe haven't had access to comics before because of so many barriers that are in comics, like underrepresentation and small distribution for self-published works, like zines. So something that I'm curious about from cartoonists is what could you recommend 1 or 2 comics that either got you into comics, or you think like for someone new to comics or who has avoided comics for understandable reasons, that might appeal to those that are new to comics, that might have stumbled upon our YouTube channel, or yeah, just I guess comics that inspire you, and that you would recommend to someone new to comics. Sorry about that rant. For anyone, if you have an answer. It's a tough question.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Like, I think there's so many, but like one that I always go back to is like Raina Telgemeier's series, like Smile and Sisters and everything. Like I think like after I read that comic, I realized that, oh, you can write comics about like just anything, like your ordinary life. It doesn't have to be a superhero comic or something that's like, out of the world. It could just be like, hey, it's just like an ordinary life, of a girl, and stuff like that. So I don't know, like it's one that I always like, and it's always pops up. So, but yeah, it's like I'm pretty sure everyone knows it, but yeah.
Thanks, Dura. Anyone else? You don't have to answer, or you could
I'll try. It's hard. It's hard because there's literally so many books. Okay, I don't know. For representation, I'll try. I just read a book by another Montreal graphic novelist called Lee Lai, who's part of TCAF, and I just finished reading Stone Fruit the other day, and it was really great. I feel like Lee tackles really difficult identity and racial and other various tough identity issues very well, and through really cool visual and verbal representation. So that one's great. And I don't know, of the comics that got me into comics that I still enjoy rereading, I would say maybe Calvin and Hobbes. That's just because I just love the snowmen. I really like the sort of like various subplots that go through it. So I don't know, try that.
I love Calvin and Hobbes too. The world building and the details, and it's such a beautiful comic. And Leela's comic too. I was mentioning before we started the webinar, but there's a TCAF had a panel earlier on queer small press and in queer communities in comics, and it was hosted by Cleopatra Peterson, who runs Old Growth Press, and it's up on TCAF's YouTube and is really great. So I would recommend that one. Thanks.
One that I read recently that was kind of like a cross between a comic and a picture book was Nightlights by Lorena Alvarez. I really like, it's like so juicy, the colors in that book. And then there's one that's called The Dam Keeper by Tonko House. That's really cool. It's like about environmental, it's like something about the environment, and it's like a pig and a fox are the main characters. And that one's really good.
Nice. kind of wanted to answer that too, because Robert mentioned Flight earlier, but we didn't really say what it's like an anthology of several different cartoonists. And I think going to those anthologies and trying to find comic anthologies with a bunch of short stories in it or excerpts from other books is a great way to find a cartoonist that you really like or a story that you really like. And often if you like a cartoonist's work, you'll find yourself wanting to read more and more of their work. And that's like a big part of how I started to get into different cartoonists and artists, was finding these different anthologies like Flight, and those like an anthology of graphic fiction, and I think Yale Press prints those or something like that. And there's a whole bunch of them out there, but that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I have one more question that I was curious about for Dua. Have you shared your comics and tradition with your kids, and what has their response been? I don't know how old they are or anything, but
Yeah, my kids are only like what, 4 and 3, so I haven't like read it to them or anything yet. But maybe when they're a little older, I'll probably read it to them, and they probably sit still for longer. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I haven't have little kids really read it, or that I know read it yet. But then it seems like a pretty easy read, and I don't know. But
And I guess for Rob too, do your kids like reading your picture books and your comics as well? And how has their response been?
The comics, no, for sure, no. My son read, for Con when it first was, finished. My daughter was like, "Nah, I'm good."
Well, I think those are all my questions. Jordan, I don't know if you have any more, if anyone has anything else they want to share or ask each other.
I was wondering for Nina why you chose to switch to digital media instead of going by hand, because your drawings are lovely by in the physical realm, but just curious about why you switched to digital.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I switched because I've always wanted to try. And I just really feel like up until I got an iPad, the technology didn't sort of like match the drawing experience as well. And I've just been meaning to try it for a few years, and I could finally get my hands on one more recently. So that's been a treat. And I've been kind of surprised to see the ways that the technology can really match sort of the textures and this experience. But like, regardless of how similar the drawings look, people are still seem to be more drawn to traditional media. It depends. Like for Christmas, people love the digital stuff, but then anytime something is painted with watercolor or gouache, people just like it does something to people, and the reactions are always like so visceral. So that's been cool.
Cool. And how about you, Robert? You're working completely physical, or analog, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Do you consider switching to digital at all, or do you do your layouts digitally, or hire somebody to do layouts or stuff like that?
I do a little bit of both. I enjoy doing the traditional media more, but I'm also curious about how to, not necessarily have the same effect, but to make it look fresh, digitally. So I do a lot of client work digitally just because it's easier to make changes and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I guess same to you, Dua. You're working 50-50, I guess you can say. I don't know if it takes longer for you to ink something than it does to color it online, but do you ever see yourself moving completely digital?
probably not, because I feel like there's something special about like, having the paper there and having the ink, seeing the ink, and I don't know, it's just something like special about that, especially if I'm working on something like long form. Like if it's a longer comic, I feel like I need to like do it like by hand. But then if it's something short or like just an illustration, I'll probably just do it digitally because I get it done faster and stuff. But if it's like a longer comic, I feel like it's necessary for me to like do it by hand because it just feels more like intimate with the paper and the pencil and like the whole drawing experience. It just feels more like real, I guess. But that's just me.
Cool.
Great.
Yeah, well, that's about it on my end.
Yeah, we've kept you over. Thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing your beautiful work. Yeah, thanks everyone. So much for joining us, and thanks again to TCAF. And I'm really glad that this will be up on YouTube permanently for a lot more people to be able to find your work. And I think I think that's it. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, maybe everyone just plug their websites before we wrap up. Websites, and I know that Nina dropped her Instagram, but just plug
Okay.
yourselves a little bit.
Yeah, you can find me at robdon'tstop.com, robdon'tstop.com, and all the social media is there. And it's great meeting everybody. It's great to be here.
I keep forgetting that I'm after you. Okay. My website that I forget to plug earlier is nina.com, but all of the letters of my name are in duplicate. So it's NNIINNAA.com.
And my website is duocheckaher.com, which you can probably find how to spell it on the TCAF like marketplace. Well, it'll be there.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. I hope you have as restful a day as possible. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.